भक्तत्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्ण समाज्ञया यो धर्म स्थापन रतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We are studying here Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, and we are in the third chapter called Maya and Illusion. In the first chapter, the necessity of religion, Swamiji has shown that man does not remain satisfied with his experiences. There is a struggle in man to go beyond the senses, either trying to find what remains after the body is dead, or from the nature, what is behind the nature. And in both sides, he reaches a unit abstraction, either in the form of personal God, or Nirguna Brahma, or some moral principle, a unit abstraction. That was the chapter of necessity of religion. And then in the real nature of man, based upon the Kathopanishad, he starts with the problem of death. And is it the end of everything that we do? What is the meaning of life? If everything we do ends at the point of death, what is the meaning then? From this starting point, he showed us that body does not make the mind or Atman, rather the mind makes the body, can be demonstrated, and so more permanent, stable than the body is the mind. But mind has a form. It may be bright or anything, but it does not solve our problem of what is real. And there may be subtler and subtler entities, but so long they have a particular shape or form, they are not the reality. And so we have to reach a reality which is no form, which is only existence, consciousness, bliss, and then this reality is our real nature. So very clear that what we feel our real nature today is unreal. That is not our real nature. And then discussing the utility, Swamiji shows that we cannot measure truth by pound, shilling and pences, but it has the highest utility because it removes the very possibility of evil from our life, and we gain the infinitude. And then he has raised the question whether it is practical or not. And then he has said in relation to society, if it is not practical in society, this society should die. Truth cannot change itself for society. This is a very important point. Absolute truth does not pay homage to any society. And so, all our life we must bend towards that reality. Now the question came that if this is not our real nature, why do we take it for our real nature? If that is our real nature, why we do not see that real nature? This is the big question. And so the question of why, what obstructs us from realizing our real nature, that point comes. And Swamiji has taken up this topic. We have heard from Vedanta that the world is Maya. So, what is the meaning of this Maya? Swamiji has said that Indro Maya be Puru Rupa Iyate. There Maya appeared like a magic show. That is not the real meaning of the word Maya. Or our mental creation called illusion, that also is not Maya. then what it is. So, referring to, as I did last time, Shankara's introduction to the Brahma Sutras, truth is one thing and fact is another. Fact of experience is another. Consciousness cannot be matter. Matter cannot be consciousness. Characteristics of matter cannot be the characteristics of consciousness. Characteristics of consciousness cannot be the characteristics of matter. And yet, our experience is a mixture of the real and the unreal. And this is called Maya, the statement of fact, that we see the world and there comes the problem. So, that is called Maya. Now, how to think about it? The Western idea are two types of man, called by whatever name. One hypothesizes some theory and then wants to find its detail. That mind cannot go to reality. Many details can be added, but if the principle was incomplete, was not really explanatory, then many details will not help us. And that is the tendency of many people in this world. The other party, India especially, they want to find the principles. That means the trend of their life is transcendental. The trend of their life is transcendental. If something is not explaining, they give it up and they try to find what appears as that. If the theory of ether or space does not satisfy the criteria for truth, what it is that appears as space? That becomes the question. And that now, what we saw on the last term, that theory of Maya dealt in different ways till we come to Shveta Upanishad. And philosophically, the Buddhists put their own interpretation, and finally what we come is Shankaracharya. And we have seen both these things, and then what it is that does not allow us to see the truth. And there we find because we talk in vain and because we are satisfied with the things of the senses and because we are running after desires, therefore we, as it were, cover the reality with a mist. As it were, because reality cannot be covered. We cover our view of the reality with something like a mist. Mist means it does not allow us to see clearly. It is not total darkness, but it does not allow us to see clearly. And that is Maya. Now, giving up the craze for details, Swamiji wants to take us higher and higher through chasing principles. And this is not a book to be read as a rapid reader. Every sentence, Swamiji is carrying us up, as it were, and using the force of his personality, using the force of his experience of the truth, using the force as a guru to lift us up. Swamiji will suddenly take us up. So we come to this paragraph, coming to the principles. That means we give up our craze for the details and come to principles. We find these Vedic thinkers very courageous and wonderfully bold. What is courageous and what is wonderfully bold? If they find something unreal, if they find something not satisfactory, they want to go beyond. If something does not fulfill the criteria, they just don't want to look at it and want to find what is beyond and behind. And then that is called boldness. Wonderfully bold. Wonderfully means they don't care at all for the world. They don't care at all for those things which cannot explain the world. And they want to go higher and higher. Wonderfully bold in propounding large and generalized theories. That is their experience, though Swamiji is putting it philosophically. Large and generalized theories. What is large and what is generalized here? Tending to universal. That is large. Large means which will include the explanation of the whole world. That is large. And that comes through generalization. Particulars you find out. But the principle should hold good for the entire universe. And that is Swamiji calls their courageous and wonderful in propounding large and generalized theories. Now, taking the outside first view of the universe, their solution of the mystery of the universe from the external world was as satisfactory as it could be. As it could be, whether science or any philosophy which accepts the outside world as an object and I am the subject. This basic mistake we commit. We cannot prove, nobody can prove that the outside world exists or that outside world is an object. Our mind divides everything into this, I am the subject and the world is an object. And then we study it. And so, what solution it can provide? Having accepted something as an object, we analyze them. So we have created a limit ourselves in our mind. And so, as it could be, as satisfactory as it could be, accepting the world to be an object, the best possible analysis has been done in Vedanta compared to any other philosophy or science. But it does not lead to the final solution. Why? It does not lead to that. Swamiji is explaining the detailed workings of modern science do not bring the question one step nearer to solution. Mind you, if the principle is not satisfactory, you may go into any details. It is not going to solve the problem at all. Because the principles have failed. So the principle of ether, they could not find whether it is a vacuum or there is some matter. And if that has failed, finding more details is not going to help us. If the theory of ether failed in ancient times to give a solution of the mystery of the universe, working out the details of that ether theory would not bring us much nearer to the truth. Then, second principle was found out prana, the life force. And the entire universe has a life force, of which we are parts or aspects of a life force. But it does not give the full solution. Where from it has come, nobody knows. So, if the theory of all-pervading life failed as a theory of this universe, it would not mean anything more if worked out in detail for the detail. For the details do not change the principle of the universe. What I mean is that in their inquiry into the principles, the Hindu thinkers were as bold and in some cases much bolder than the moderns. Boldness of the modern in removing the superstitions of the world, scientifically arguing in favor of something higher, but they cannot reach more high. So the Indian thinkers could go beyond, because the mind is transcendental, that is the main thing. Mind seeks a solution which is behind and beyond, which is not on the surface. What I mean is that in the inquiry into the principle, the Hindu thinkers were as bold, in some cases, much bolder than the moderns. As bold as them or much bolder, because we are going beyond. They made some of the greatest generalizations that have yet been reached. That is conservation of matter, conservation of energy, that is generalization. But the Indians came across Akasha, Prana, mind beyond the Akasha. So the generalization has been, in some cases, equivalent to that of science. And some still remain as theories, which modern science has yet to get even as theories. That means not yet worked out in details, but as theories. Modern science could not get those theories even. So boldness is increasing now. For instance, they not only arrived at the ether theory, but went beyond and classified mind also as a still more rarefied ether. Rarefied, sukshma, finer, not gross, more than the matter or the akasha. Ether failed. Indians had akasha. But mind is more subtle than akasha, more vyapak than akasha. This no others have not reached. Beyond that again, they form a still more rarefied ether. Yet that was no solution. It did not solve the problem. No amount of knowledge of the external world could solve the problem. But, says the scientist, we are just beginning to know a little. Wait a few thousand years and we shall get the solution. No, says the Vedanta, for he has proved beyond all doubt that the mind is limited. That is the main thing. Mind has been found out. Mind has been found out. Mind is constituted with time, space and causation. There is nothing time, space and causation outside. Mind is made of time, space and causation. So when we try to think by the mind, we are limited by the ideas of time, space and causation. Here the main breakthrough, as they call it, is done by Vedanta. Give up mind. Try to find the reality which is higher than the mind. Because when we try to find, using mind as the main weapon, mind is limited. Whatever mind sees, it will be made of time, space and causation. So, that it cannot go beyond certain limits, beyond time, space and causation. That is the very constitution of the mind. These people have to understand. This is the science, or any other philosophers have to understand that the thinking instrument has failed. The instrument, only instrument which a man thought he has failed because it works under a limitation. That is the main problem. But man is much higher. Man can go beyond mind. That is the first principle in Vedanta. And there, Swamiji's mind, Swamiji's consciousness has gone beyond mind immediately. When one goes beyond mind, then only one can find the limitations of the mind. Remaining in the mind, we cannot go anywhere. We are thinking through these three parameters only. So here, Swamiji is taking us with a jump. We must follow him. If you have to understand any word after this, we have to get at this idea. Our thinking capacity of the mind, not that my mind is weak or your mind is strong. Human mind is limited. All thoughts in the human mind are conditioned. And so, unless we know that we have to go beyond the mind, we cannot make an iota of progress in knowing the reality. That is the main point. And so Swamiji's mind has flown. As no man can jump out of his own self, so no man can go beyond the limits that have been put upon him by the laws of time and space. Mind, please understand this. Mind is time, space, causation. Every thought in the mind is conditioned by time, space and causation. And so, mind cannot know the nature of the reality. That is the main point. In the modern philosophy, German philosopher Immanuel Kant has shown through reason what reason can do. If something is wrong, reason can show it is wrong. But what is right, reason has no capacity to go there. Reason works under time, space and causation. And that is the world. That is the world we experience. Every attempt to solve the laws of causation, time and space would be futile, because the very attempt would have to be made by taking for granted the existence of these three. If this thing could be understood, then Swamiji's Maya would be understood. Mind is limited by its own nature. Unless we find a way to go beyond mind, we cannot imagine that there is something beyond the mind, because everything in ours gets limited by that mind. Every thought, every aspiration, every attempt, science or mathematics or physics or Western philosophy or other Indian philosophies, every thinking is going by the mind, and mind is limited. And so, unless we find ways and means of going beyond the mind, we cannot come to truth at all. This one has to understand. There comes the jump of the Vedanta philosophy. What does the statement of the existence of the world mean? Then we say that the world is there. Means something is there. We are seeing something as much as caught by time, space and causation, as much as projected on time, space and causation. If the reality is beyond, we have no glimpse of it. And the world, Swamiji has used two different types. What does the statement of the existence of the world means then? This world has no existence. What is meant by that? So, world's existence, taking for granted time, space and causation. Then we say world has no existence. What does it mean? Now please. It means that it has no absolute existence. That means world is the absolute reality as seen through time, space and causation. That is the world. So in the absolute sense it has no existence. If our consciousness goes beyond time, space and causation, we shall see no world at all. Then why we see? And why what I see that you see? Why all people see the same thing? Because we are all seeing through the human mind. Human mind will have varieties, but the basic common feature of human mind is time, space and causation. Another way to put up the mind is that mind can think only as subject thinking of objects. Another way of thinking of the mind is mind can only think with names and forms. So mind is limited. And then, so the world is real as seen by me. And same thing is seen by you. And same thing is seen in the humanity. So because it is universally seen by human, it does not make it real. My mind is limited, and seeing through that mind, I get a very limited concept of the reality, that is the world. So when we say mind does not, world does not exist, I mean it has no absolute existence. Absolute existence means when we go beyond our mind, we shall find no world. On the other hand, all the world which we see is nothing but the reality as projected in time, space and causation. So, it exists only in relation to my mind, to your mind and to the mind of everyone else. So it is not subject to imagination. I am not imagining, but my mind is a limited thing. And same limitation, your mind has same limitation, everybody's mind has, sages exempted. Sages are exceptions, and we have to become exceptions like them. So, Swamiji is taking us beyond now. You understand this point? World we see by our mind, your mind, somebody's mind. So, mind is made of time, space and causation. Seen through that, the reality appears as this world. So, in a sense real, because all of us see that. But it is not real because it has no absolute existence. If we had gone beyond time, space and causation, we would not have found the world. That is the position. The position is this. Now to explain, to convince us, Swamiji says, our mind works with the help of five senses only. Data is brought by the five senses and mind just works on it to find out something. And mind has time, space and causation. So, senses have their own limitations and mind has its own limitations. Now, if we had yet another sense, it would appear as something still different. Yes. So what data we collect? Suppose we had some other sense. For example, electric sense. That means we could have found out how much electricity is flowing. Then the whole world will appear as electrons and protons to us. If we had another sense, we will see the world like that. It has therefore no real existence. Real, absolute. Existence, relative, as seen through our mind. Now he explains further. It has no unchangeable, immovable, infinite existence. We see the world is changing, and changes depend upon time. And if we go beyond time, we would find the reality unchanging. But the world is always changing. So world has no existence which is unchangeable, immovable. Continuously in the world motions are going on, everything is in a flux. And that depends upon time and space and causation. If we could have been free from this, then we'd get at the reality which is immovable, one without a second. Infinite we have seen. Infinite means one without a second. If there is something else, it will limit itself. Especially time-wise and thing-wise, infinite cannot have parts, infinite cannot have any limitation. Now these are the criteria for our reality. Our reality, our individual reality, the reality of the whole world has to be unchangeable, immovable, infinite. Till then, as Swamiji has explained in the previous chapter, we are not individuals who are changing and changing and changing. So this is the point. Nor can it be called non-existence. So don't jump to say it has no existence, because we see it. So far as our experience goes, through time, space and causation, the world exists. So, world is a mixture of existence and non-existence. Existence is of the reality. Reality, unchanging, immovable, infinite. World, changing, movable, finite. And so, as perceived by our mind. So the reality and unreality we are mixing up. That is what Shankaracharya told, Satyanrute Mithuni Krutya. And we have to work in and through it, yes. Yes, even to go beyond this world, we have to be in this world and try to go beyond the world. So it is real. It is real in the sense our life is in this world. It is a mixture of existence and non-existence. This is the Maya. A mixture of existence, some characteristics of absolute, some characteristics of the changing, a mixture of the two is the world. So the world has a relative existence, not the absolute existence. The world is not unreal because it has an existence, relative. It has an existence in relation to my mind, your mind, and so it cannot be called to be non-existing. That is the problem. Coming from abstractions to the common everyday details of our life, we have to find this Maya in our life. How everything in our life is a contradiction. Everything in our life is a mixture of truth and untruth. Where shall we go? Unless we go beyond that. This is what Swamiji brilliantly is showing in this book, in this lecture. As Shankaracharya has told us, Tathapi, our experience, Satyanrute Mithuni Krutya, Ahamidam Mamedamiti Naisargikoyam Lokavihara. Natural behavior of the people, natural facts occurring in the life of the people, it is mine, it is I, it is mine, to limited bodies and minds. Now, we must feel this. Unless we feel this in every aspect of our life, we shall not make attempt to go beyond. We think we are happy here. Impossible to be happy here. Here the definition of happiness is that which ends in misery. Where the sign of life is the cry of the child, that is the world. So, let us find it out in every sphere of life. And there Swamiji is brilliant now. There is this contradiction in knowledge. Yes, start. It seems that man can know everything. If he only wants to know, it seems that we can know everything if we want to know. But before he has gone a few steps, he finds an adamantine wall which he cannot pass. What is that adamantine wall? Time. What is that adamantine wall? Space. What is that adamantine wall? That of causation. We cannot go beyond that. How can we know the reality which has to be beyond time, space and causation? All his work is in a circle. That's all. That means data provided by our 5 organs. That is the circle. And our theories become dependent on each other. For some time, matter was defined as that which is acted upon by energy. Energy is that which acts upon matter. We cannot find an absolute definition for anything. So this is called a circle, and he cannot go beyond that circle. The problems which are nearest and dearest to him, what are the problems? What survives after death? What is the reality beyond? They are our problems. Those who do not have these problems are not fit to be called a man. They are living a vegetating life. All of us are living vegetating life unless we struggle to rise above this nature and to find out the truth. That is the principle. So, all his work is in a circle and he cannot go beyond that circle. The problems which are nearest and dearest to him. Nearest, what is my reality? What is my reality? That is the nearest problem. And because it is my reality, it has to be my dearest. If it is my reality, it should be dearest. We feel body is my reality, so body is very dear. Mind is still inside, so mind is more near, real, dear. The innermost will be the dearmost. And so, that is our problem. Problems which are nearest and dearest to him are impelling him on and calling day and night for a solution. This is the sadhaka. That we do not know our real nature, it is calling upon us. Find out what is your real nature. Find out what is the real nature of the world. And our mind, which is made of time, space and causation, can never find it. That is the problem. Because he cannot go beyond his intellect. The problems which are nearest and dearest to him are impelling him on and calling day and night for a solution. But he cannot solve them because he cannot go beyond his intellect. Intellect, thinking process of the mind itself. Thinking process of the mind itself is called intellect, and it is bound by time, space and causation. And yet that desire is implanted strongly in him, because that is our real nature. Because our real nature is beyond time, space and causation, the desire to know is implanted. If the desire is not to know the reality, that is no life at all. If we are satisfied by the detailed working of our everyday life, what it is giving us, tatakim, tatakim. So, that is man. Huh? Yet that desire is implanted strongly in him. Still we know that the only good is to be obtained by controlling and checking it. Because we are not finding a solution and we want to live happily, so we check our desire to go beyond, and that kills us. With every breath, every impulse of our heart asks us to be selfish. See, another contradiction Swami is showing. He has shown the contradiction in knowledge. We want to know the reality, we want to know it through our mind. Our mind is time, space and causation. We cannot find the answer to what is beyond this unless we give up the mind. And without giving up the mind, we are trying to know. That is contradiction. The desire to know is because there is something real. Otherwise, there would not have been this desire. And working is through our mind. So, contradiction in knowledge and desire, as we found Narada, any number of sciences we go on learning, any number of sciences, and yet our dissatisfaction will grow and not come to any reality. With every breath, every impulse of our heart asks us to be selfish. How? Because we are consciousness as limited by this body and this mind. So essentially we are selfish. At the same time, there is some power beyond it, us, which says that it is unselfishness alone which is good. All moral laws, all ethics we have shown are based upon the principle of unselfishness. But how it has come, why this thing has come, you see, this is man. Schizophrenia is every man. Contradiction, selfishness, unselfishness, both are in man. If he goes towards unselfishness, selfishness has to go. If he sticks to selfishness, he cannot go after unselfishness. And then he tries to make a combination and a balance. This much selfish, that much unselfish, and he is torn in the mind. Schizophrenia is the result. That is Maya. That is the contradiction. If he remains satisfied with his desires, he dies. If he wants to go beyond, what is the instrument to go beyond? So that is the man. Every child is a born optimist. He dreams golden dreams. In youth he becomes still more optimist. It is hard for now another sphere Swami is showing. Selfishness and unselfishness. Desire to be happy and the result of unhappiness. In youth he becomes still more optimist. It is hard for a young man to believe that there is such a thing as death, such a thing as defeat or degradation. Old age comes and life is a mass of ruins. Dreams have vanished into the air and the man becomes a pessimist. Thus we go from the extreme to another, buffeted by nature, without knowing where we are going. Yes, that is another problem. Our life is a drift. we do not know where we are going. We are being carried away by our impulses. We do not know where we are going. I remember one incident. One great mathematician came to meet my Guruji and was telling about his achievements. I did this, I did this, I did this. For about 20 minutes, my Guruji listened to it. And then he said, but 10 years back, did you know where the wind will blow? That means, did you plan it? Your desires have carried you, not you. So 10 years back, did you know where we would go? Do we know where we are going? That was the problem Buddha faced, and he left his house and became a sannyasi. Where we are going? We are not aware. What is the end of life? We are not aware. Some research work, some teaching, some nonsensical achievements, and then we die. So where have we gone? Unless we find the solution of what remains permanently after death, where are we going? And that is the tragedy of human life. He lives a life without knowing where he is going. And if he does not care for that, he is blindly living. So, terrible. It reminds me of a celebrated song in the Lalita Vistar, the biography of Buddha. Buddha was born, says the book, as the savior of mankind. But he forgot himself in the luxuries of his palace. Some angels came and sang a song to rouse him. And the burden of the whole song is that we are floating down the river of life, which is continually changing with no stop and no rest. So are our lives, going on and on without knowing any rest. Bengalis should remember, Judaite chai kothai Judai. Where we are going, we do not know. From where we came, we do not know. Where we are going, we do not know. We want rest, but there is no rest. Impelled by desires we move, and we do not know. What are we to do? The man who has enough to eat and drink is an optimist, and he avoids all mention of misery, for it frightens him. To talk of death, they say inauspicious. Don't talk of death. Don't talk of death. But it is a fact of life, the supreme fact of life. Everything in this life, Bhagavan Buddha said, everything in the life is absolutely uncertain. Only death is certain. Only death is certain. Another point is that when death comes is not certain. But there everything ends. So, avoids all mention of misery, for it frightens him. Tell not to him of the sorrows and the sufferings of the world. Go to him and tell that it is all good. Yes, I am safe, says he. Look at me, I have a little nice house to live in. I do not fear cold and hunger. Therefore, do not bring those horrible pictures before me. But on the other hand, there are others dying of cold and hunger. If you go and teach them that it is all good, they will not hear you. How can they wish others to be happy when they are miserable? Thus we are oscillating between optimism and pessimism. Taking human race as a whole, he has shown some people happy, but this happiness does not remain. The old man again becomes pessimist. So, That is Maya. That is fact of life. We are not happy. We want to believe we are happy. We want to be happy because bliss is our real nature. But it is not expressed. We are limited, and in limitation there cannot be any happiness. And we are limitless. Our real nature is bliss itself. That goads us to find happiness. Our real nature is infinite. That goads us to find infinity. But our life is a limitation. Our life is a limitation on every side. Now take any two countries. If they want to expand, they have to hit the other country. So, see, can we be happy? A thoughtful man, can he be happy? It is not preaching pessimism, mind you. All the great people, Patanjali, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan Buddha, everybody has shown that this life is misery. Life is a mixture of truth, happiness and misery. And we want permanent happiness here. And the burden of the whole song is that we are floating down the river of life, which is continually changing with no stop and no rest. So are our lives, going on and on without knowing any rest. What are we to do? The man who has enough to eat and drink is an optimist, and tell not to him of the sorrow and the sufferings of the world. Go to him and tell that it is all good. Yes, I am safe, says he. Look at me, I have a nice house. But on the other hand, there are others dying of cold and hunger. If you go and teach them that it is all good, they will not hear you. How can they wish others to be happy when they are miserable? Thus we are oscillating between optimism and pessimism. And then you bring that problem of death. Death is there. Death should have aroused us at least. All our struggle should end in death. What is the use of enjoying the world for 2 minutes? All life is short. The longest life is short because it is going to end. And everything is over. It is such a tremendous fact of life. Then there is a tremendous fact of death. The whole world is going towards death. Everything dies. The whole world goes away in pralaya. All our progress, our vanities, our reforms, our luxuries, our wealth, our knowledge have that one end, death. That's all. That is all that is certain. Cities, not only about man, cities come and go, empires rise and fall, planets break into pieces and crumble into dust, to be blown about by the atmosphere of other planets. Thus it has been going on from time without beginning. Death is the end of everything. Death is the end of life, of beauty, of wealth, of power, of virtues too. We may earn lot of punyam, but we die. Saints die and sinners die. Kings die and beggars die. They are all going to death. And yet this tremendous clinging on to life exists, you see. Yudhishthira was asked a question. What is wonder? He said that every day people around us are dying. And our every action shows as if we are living eternally. Arrange for this, arrange for that, and then leave it up and die. So once one thinks a little, one will find life is misery. Life because of limitation. Because our mind is limited, so everything around us is limited. Because we are viewing it through our mind. That is the problem. And because our real nature is not that, the hankering does not go. If we suppress it, there is no solution. Suppression of the desire to reach the reality cannot be any solution. Somehow we do not know why we cling to life. Yes. Though we are knowing that we will die, why we are clinging to life? 2 days more. Why? There is a story. A young man went to a doctor. And those who enjoy life, the Western expression is that you are burning your candle at both ends. Life is death. When the candle is lighted, it is living, and it has started dying. Now, if you enjoy more, then as if the candle is lighted from both sides. So he tells the doctor, please don't tell me not to burn candle from both sides. Give me more wax you can. And nobody can give that more wax. And suppose you get a little more wax, it will get end. You cannot continuously get wax. So that is the problem of life. Without understanding or feeling this Maya, the desire for reaching the reality will not really arise. Swami has shown in the previous 2 lectures, because of the divinity of man he struggles. His struggle will really materialize when he knows that he is dying every moment. When he knows that his life is a contradiction, don't think of that. Enjoy as you are and suffer. Vegetating life. We cling to life. We cannot give it up. And this is Maya. 3-4 times Swami has shown, but here has used the expression. This is Maya. Contradiction. We are clinging to life, but we are going to die. We have a desire for eternal life, but we have to die. And this is Maya. We want to know everything, we can never know anything. There is a funny thing about it. Curiosity. When the scientists came to know that we are always seeing only one side of the moon, very curious they became to find out what is at the other side. Many years, many dollars, many scientists' brain went into it, and they sent a rocket to suppose the other side of the moon. Going there, what they find? There is nothing, even a mark between this side and that side. Curiosity. Though the end result is not going to be anything, going beyond is different. Curious to know the unknown is different. So, this problem ends in nonsense. Now another, we have completed our hour, we have just now started. We have just now started. Swami will show everything in life is a contradiction. Let me read one more paragraph. The mother is nursing a child with great care. All her soul, her life is in the child. The child grows, becomes a man, and perchance becomes a blackguard and a brute, kicks her and beats her every day, and yet the mother clings to the child, and when her reason awakes, she covers it up with the idea of love. She little thinks that it is not love, that it is something which has got hold of her nerves, which she cannot shake off, however she may try. She cannot shake off the bondage she is in, and this is Maya. I gave one example. Like that, Swamiji will show in every sphere of life, see contradiction. And we are living. So the world has existence in relation to my mind, your mind, and everybody's mind. Absolute, world has no existence. If we can go beyond our mind, we will see the world does not exist. And this mixture of the real and the unreal is our life. And this we have to find a solution. But before we find a solution, we have to feel this miserable condition of life. We have to feel this contradiction in our life. Then only awakening will come. Then only we will go beyond that. Then only the spirit of transcendence will come. Then only the mad run for enjoyment will vanish. I will give you one more simile and stop. The competitions are called rat race. Rat race. Many rats are running. Who wins first? But who wins what it does? Where it goes? There is a cat sitting at this end. The rat which is successful will enter her mouth first. This is rat race. Those who lose, they are miserable. Those who win are dead. One small example I will give again. One young boy, MBA, and he was describing his work and his salary. And no social life is left for him, no spiritual life is left for him. Work is always on his back. So I asked, what is the fun? He said, when we will earn more money, we will have to live like that. We want more money, so we will have to live like that. That is Maya. That is Maya. And so, Swami will show through every... Let me end now. We'll resume this in the next term. A wonderful lesson Swami is showing. This is the cornerstone of Vedanta. That is why Swamiji told, we must know it properly because it is the cornerstone of Vedanta. Not idea, not idealism, not realism, not delusion, not illusion, statement of fact, of contradiction in life. Om Paratatve Sadalino Ramakrishna Samagyaya Yo Dharma Sthapana Rato Viresham Tam Namamyam Om Shanti 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 Hare Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanam.